episode, of course, was written by Paul as well. So, Freud-Layton. Folks, I know there's a lot of folks out here that might have some wonderful questions for these folks out here. And do we have a microphone or anything like that that might be able to tour around and get that? Is that I can't see anything past the first or so row, but I know I saw some cordless mics perhaps in the back. Or is there a place to line up for questions? Or yes, they're waving. They're saying hi right there. Oh, hi, way back there. Yes, we have plenty of time for some questions. So anything you'd like to ask these wonderful folks, you can do so now. And if you, for whatever reason, don't get a chance to ask them your burning question, head on down to table EO1 and EO2 after this, because you can meet Paul and Tom, and even the Bernsteins are going to be down there as well, and John. So come on down and say hi. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go to our first question back there. Let's see a light in the back.
Hello. Is there going to be a third season of the new Animaniacs?
There is the third season that has started, right?
Yeah,
it's actually the third season.
It's out on Hulu.
It's been dropped, so it's there. Dropped in a good way, I mean.
But they didn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, there won't be a fourth.
Hey, settle down. Sorry, it comes out. Continue.
Yes.
Hi. I had a quick question about the character that we just saw on screen. Was there anything that inspired you guys to give him that really wacky voice that everyone laughed at?
No. Yes, so, all right, so I was a big Jerry Lewis fan. I still am a big Jerry Lewis fan. And around the office, unfortunately, I would be like, oh, nice lady with the boys and everything. And Tom is like, if we give you a part, would you stop that? So I was like, yeah, but not really. And so we did the first one, and there were two versions of Jerry Lewis back then. There was the oh yeah, you with the nice man, go hi. And then there was the telethon Jerry, who felt it from the heart and could talk to you in an avuncular manner while using witticisms and chubimations. And Tom was like, do a lot of that guy. So there you go. Have I answered your question? If not, sit down.
And he, of course, he carried that on, and that became a part of who Freakazoid ultimately was.
Yeah, Freakazoid became a lot of that. That's a whole different story. That's tomorrow.
There was also Hearts of Darkness, the documentary.
Yeah. So that was. So I remember. I'll be real quick. But I said, Tom, you know, it'd be funny to do a parody of like Hearts of Darkness or Apocalypse Now, because the kids will love it. And Tom is like, yes, they will. Let's make it as complicated as possible. And I'm like, I'm there for that. So that was kind of the way we wrote Animaniacs back then. It was like, if we in the room were like, ha ha ha, then to heck with the kids.
I remember when we made a Pinky and the Brain episode called The Third Mouse, which was a parody of The Third Man, which is an Orson Welles movie made in like 1948 or something. And we finished it and we sent it over to Spielberg, and he wrote back at me and was like, what are you guys doing?
It's like Meatballs and Consequences, because kids love The Seventh Seal. Can't get enough of Bert.
Very existential. I think they said, are we alive or are we...
Are we in Ohio?
Oh, are we in Ohio?
Yes, in fact, if we go to the feed right now, we can see a clip of this right here. Oh. So the Bergman-esque kind of moves.
But if you must stay with your brother, then Appendix 3 contains a clause allowing the carrier, that's me, to play you in the life or death game of chess.
Chess is unknown to us. We prefer checkers.
Checkers it is.
Unless you have Uncle Wiggly or Candyland.
I win, Wakko goes with me. You win, and the three of you stay together forever. Agreed.
We accept. To accept is to yield. To yield is to allow oncoming traffic the right of way. It's like the breeze off a landfill. Food particles are wedged between your teeth.
Let's get another question.
Yes, your guys' show is one of the funniest cartoon shows I've ever seen. I'm ranking it really high. A lot of the jokes, very sophisticated, so I'm just wondering, what were the comedic influences that's in the DNA? There's some stuff I've watched and I'm like, hey, that kind of reminds me of Mel Brooks, or reminds me of an Airplane when I watch certain episodes. What were your comedic influences?
I think a lot of us felt at the beginning we were channeling some Marx Brothers material. Jean McCurdy, our bosses, her husband once said to us, hey, I used to work in children's programming. Every year someone would come in, I've got the new Marx Brothers, and they never did. It was never very good. And you folks finally put the Marx Brothers in sort of cartoon form, and it's funny. So they were an influence. I mean, classic comedy was an influence, but these two fellows, John and Paul, they were brilliant comedians in their own right. They worked in improv. The first time I ever laid eyes on these two guys, they were on stage at an Acme Theater, and they had me rolling on the floor. They have a way of commanding comedy in an audience, and so I think they can tell you more about their comic background.
Well, Monty Python was a big one also. Particularly John Cleese, who showed up in another show that we'll talk about later. But yeah, Second City Television was another great influence. And some of the people outside the 7-Eleven near our theater.
Yep. Yeah, Marx, when I was given my first script, which was Roll Over Beethoven, I worked with John, we were doing improv, and Tom had come to see the show and gave us both an individual script, and when he and Sherry Stoner mentioned they are, pretty much the Marx Brothers, that was an in immediately. And obviously over the years we've sort of morphed that, but Yakko was definitely Groucho, and the other two they were interchangeable. But yeah, I mean, Python definitely. We tried to do some Python stuff, but also I will just say the old. I don't know if you guys know who Jack Benny is, but the old. I thought we were really hip and we were good comedy writers until I listened to the Jack Benny radio show from the 40s, and it's some of the hippest, craziest, most wonderful stuff. So that sort of influence. Anyway, Steven Bernstein.
We had no input on the writing at all.
Yeah, no matter, we would send in stuff and they would go, no.
We also, John and I worked on something called Woodstock Slappy, and as you can tell, if you've seen some old Abbott and Costello movies, we were inspired by Who's on First, which is a clip from this.
Yeah, let's go and see if this works here.
Oh, that's what I want to know.
I'm telling you.
Who is on stage?
Yes.
Who is?
Yes.
Oh, so the name of the band is Yes.
No, Aunt Sloppy. Yes is not even at this concert.
Then who is on stage?
Yes.
Who is?
Yes.
That's what I just said. Yes is on stage.
No, Yes is not here. Who is on stage?
What are you asking me for?
I'm not.
Wait, let's try this again. Do you see the band on stage?
No, I don't see the band. That's a different group entirely.
Look, see the band?
No, I don't.
Get rid of those John Lennon glasses and look. There's the band.
No, that's not the band. The band's performing later on. Who's on stage?
You tell me.
Who?
The name of the group on stage. The name of the group.
Who?
The group on stage.
Who?
The band.
No, the band's performing later. Right now we're listening to who?
That's what I want to know.
And it goes on and on and on.
My turn? So, howdy, everyone. I am way after Animaniacs came out, so I was...
Oh, you're saying we're really old?
That's terrible of you.
Next question.
My question is, what was the animation industry like back then in the day?
Well, we had chisels.
We used to use coal and an ironing board. And if there was no photocopying, you'd have a guy come over and you'd smoke with him.
If you were late, they put dogs in the room.
That's right. If you don't get the script out, you're going to be mauled.
We did everything on paper. We drew on paper. We wrote the things on it. Well, we actually had computers, but we painted. There was all cell animation back then, and so it was really, compared to today's process, fairly primitive. I mean, they don't use the cells anymore, so there were people painting these cells. It was a lot of manual labor.
And the music. Remember, we were talking about how back in the 90s, there were no computers to put the music to use a synthesizer and play it. So the first time that Paul, Tom, anybody, John, anybody would hear the music, even we would hear it in the orchestra, was at the live recording session, which is completely different than today.
And they were hearing it in their heads, but those were the only people that
we
sounded like
did hear it in our heads, but nobody else, so nobody could either say it's not good or it's good. They would just have to come to the session and it would be there.
And by the way, the gravy of sort of after you write and you record and all the hard part is done, then if you were lucky, you got to go to these sessions on stage one, right? At Warner Brothers, which is where Carl Stalling made all the original stuff, and these 40 people would be there, and then they'd be scoring your cartoon. It was insane. And these people would all come in, they'd be like, hi Phil, hi Mary, how are you, how are you, how are you? And then Steve would go like this, or Julie would go like this, and everyone would go, and it would be like, wow! It was amazing.
The sound was enormous.
I'm sorry, we were just as amazed, I just got to say, that these people can actually do that after a take. After one go through, they would do that, and it was amazing.
Was the piano the same one that Carl Stalling used?
I think at first, yeah.
And it was the same piano that was used on all those early films.
They recorded Casablanca in that studio.
I don't think they did as many glissandos down the piano with as many anvils falling.
Yeah, they never had a theremin. They should have.
Yeah. We had way more Xylo, I believe. Right?
Yeah, oh, the Xylo. That was a really, I mean, our Xylo player was playing, you have no idea how fast he could play. Just...
Well, we gave him the violin part, and we said, here, play this. And he said, okay. You know,
Quite
a
phenomenal.
lot of notes in not much time.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so whenever I'm writing a sketch, most of the time I have an idea for who I want to cast. When you were in the process of writing the show, did you guys write your characters with Rob, Jess, and Tress in mind? Or were they already signed to work on the show to begin with?
We were trying to write them out of it. No, we auditioned everybody in town. Rob was tremendously, we loved him from his work on Tiny Toons. He had, what really super impressed me about his work on Tiny Toons was when Babs and Buster went downriver in what I did on my vacation, and they met these possums. And Rob, Charlie Adler didn't do the twanging that Buster did with his mouth. Rob Paulson did it, and he did it with, he could cover all these different octaves. It was amazing. So we thought, well, that guy can really sing. So we wanted to put a lot of songs in Animaniacs because that was the only way we would ever get royalties.
Thank you very much, by the way.
We needed to get, we wanted to get really great singers. So Rob, Jess, and Tress were particularly good singers. So Rob, we definitely pushed him. When we sent a bunch of auditions to Steven, we put like 3 of Rob in there, but he didn't know. And Tress, I think we pretty much knew we wanted Tress from the beginning. And then Jess came in. He was the last audition on the last day, and we were at our wits' end. I think everyone was coming in. His name was Wakko, and everyone was doing like, "Hello, I'm Wakko! Wakko, yeah!" And every audition was like that. And it was like, oh my gosh, we're dead. We're dead.
This isn't bonkers.
So we started reading names out of the almanac, celebrity names, and we got to the Beatles, and Rob, and we said, "Do you do any Beatles?" He said, "Which one?" And he did all of them. And we thought the Ringo was particularly strong, and that's the one we sent in, and that's the one that won. Casting Paul Rugg was more difficult, right?
Very difficult to work with.
So when we write for these characters, well, you guys, when you're writing for a particular character, I know you love writing for Wakko.
Yeah, I like. What's funny is when we first started, we didn't have Rob, Jess, and Tress. We were just sort of going off of that Marx Brothers vibe. Once they were cast and we started hearing it, then we definitely started writing for Rob and writing for